When you log into Talisma CRM, you'll be taken to the admissions workspace, which consists of 4 different panes and a search pane. The upper left pane has a listing of leads. Depending on what tab you have selected, these are tabs along the top here, it will show you leads in various stages. So these are new leads, these are apply now, new leads. The definitions of all these stages will be given to you during training, of course. My leads and all leads. In the case where you have a pane that has so many tabs that they can't all be listed in one area, you can scroll back and forth between the tabs using the arrows next to them. But perhaps a quicker way to get through them is to use it's commonly called the dolphin arrow, and that gives up a list of all the tabs where you can jump straight to whichever one you want from there. The Properties tab, in this context, contains information about the contact record. So this is where you'll find information, their address, name, phone number, and information like that at a very quick glance. As you scroll through various records in the upper left pane here, you'll notice that the information in the other 3 panes changes to be related to whatever you have selected over here. So in this case I have test lead M selected, and you see his interactions, which are similar to activities in Contact Manager, Campus View, and his lead information over here. The original leads will show you any duplicate leads or other leads that belong to that record. So if you have different different applications for different programs and whatnot, they'll all be listed here. One thing to keep in mind when you're clicking through these lists of records is that if you click on the number, it is a hyperlink and it will open in a new window whatever you have clicked on there. So in this case I've clicked on the number for FedEx and it's pulling up that record for FedEx. Keep in mind when that happens that your other window is still open, it's just behind it, and Talisma CRM allows you to open up to 6 windows at one time. If you try to open a 7th, it will prompt you, telling you need to close a few windows before you can open any more. When you're in a record like this and you have properties at the top that you want to change, you can simply change them by clicking on the property and making the change that you want to change it to. Similarly, if you have properties you want to change that aren't up here, then you can scroll through and locate them in the Properties pane and make changes to them as well. You can, of course, use the disk icon to save, or if you try and close without saving, it will prompt you. If there are any required fields that you haven't filled in, it will prompt you to fill them in at that time. Enter a lead source and then you save it, and it should complete the close of that window. So there you go. When you make a change to a record, sometimes it doesn't always show up right away. So on this workspace, so the quickest way to get it to refresh, of course, is to hit the refresh button. Each pane has its own refresh button located here, which you can use to refresh that individual pane. The workspace contains a refresh all button, which will refresh all of the panes in one click, or the press of F5 on your keyboard will also do that. All workspaces contain a search pane, which to use you would click the new button, enter in any criteria that you want to locate your lead based on, and hit the run button, and it should pull up all of your results. If you use the use contains operator, it works out much better because it will show you anybody with what you have typed in or what you have entered for your criteria with those values contained. If you unclick that, it's going to look for exactly what you have entered in above, and it may not show you entering information. In this case, we got lucky. There was a lead named exactly test in there. If we change it to say Ray and hit run, we'll get no leads. But if we use the use contains operator and leave that array there, then you can see we get several, anything with a RAY in the name. Another thing to keep in mind when working in the workspace is that you can close individual panes or maximize individual panes, which can get confusing, and you can think that perhaps your panes have disappeared or something to that effect. So if you inadvertently close a pane or have a pane closed because of clicking this X in the pane, for instance, you'll notice that it appears to change the way the workspace looks, and clearly your panes are missing. If that happens, if your workspace doesn't look the way you expect it to, always go to the View menu and see if there are things that are unchecked in this kind of middle section area between these two lines, this line here and this line here. So if you re-click it, it will restore the pane and you'll be back in business. If you inadvertently or even purposely close the search pane, to get that back, it's the same method under the View menu, except it's at the very top in this case. Another thing to keep in mind when working in the workspace is the menus relate to the pane you have selected. So in this case, I have the lead pane selected, so I get a lead menu. When I click on that menu, I can see all the different options that I can do with a lead. If I click in the interactions pane, you'll see I will get an interaction menu, which gives me all the options that I can do with an interaction. If I click in the contact pane, you'll see I get a contact menu, which similarly gives me all the actions I can do for a contact. So that's something to keep in mind, that the window dynamically changes as you move around from one work pane to another. This concludes your overview demonstration of Toolisma CRM.